Good evening. Welcome to our second school reopening parent meeting. This is Leslie Whitcomb, Superintendent of Schools in New Lebanon. And I'm hoping that we will be able to answer all your questions, at least the ones we have answers for tonight about school reopening. And what we're going to do is have a bunch of prepared slides here. A lot of what's on the slides was developed based on the questions that people have already submitted through emails. And you can continue to submit email questions. Send them in through, what's the address on it? School opening questions at newlebanoncsd.org. And during this meeting, if questions occur to you, send your chat questions to Jason McCord in the chat. And at the end, after I go through the slides, we'll be reviewing your chats and I will answer the questions that are in there. We'll start with the ones maybe that we have the most questions about, or maybe things that I know that are left out of the slides. What I really want to emphasize on this is how much we are all in this together. We all have families, we all have concerns, and we all really want to get back to our lives as we knew them sometime back in March. And that's not really available to us. So with the advice of New York State Department of Education and ongoing coordination with the Department of Health, we have put together what we think is a reasonable plan to get back to school. But people have options, and that's what we'll be going through also tonight. So let's get started. So start with schedules. At Walter B. Howard and at grades 7 and 8, we're on a hybrid, which means all students here in person, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. All students in remote instruction on Wednesdays. Childcare is available for grades K through 6. The grade 9 through 12 hybrid has half of the students in person on Monday and Thursday, half of the students in person Tuesday and Friday, all students in remote instruction on Wednesday. So one of the questions people ask is, why is it different in the high school? And the reason it's different in the high school is we worked very hard, Matt Clefane worked very hard trying to come up with a schedule where we could have the social distancing that we need and have kids in every day, and it just wasn't possible. So in the high school, on the days that the students are not in session, they will have work posted in their Google Classroom that they can do. Matt Clefane is on this call. Matt, do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
I think I first want to say hello to everybody and the parents of children who are in my building. Thanks for joining the discussion. I'm happy to have you involved. You know, Leslie's absolutely right. Thankfully we're a small school district, and we're able to build a master schedule with very small class sizes to begin with. That said, with the social distancing guidelines of 6 feet in a classroom and our desire for kids to be wearing masks at the junior, senior high school at all times, we want to make classes even smaller, and the hybrid schedule basically allows for that. And we're very thankful that we can have kids 9 through 12 in the building as frequently as we do. And I think that we can provide a solid instructional base and quality learning for our kids.
So I think this answers some questions. I'm sure it raises a few more questions. Let's go through what the day would look like. One of the things we put in place is what we're going to expect in terms of use of personal protective equipment. All students are going to wear masks. We encourage parents to provide a mask, but masks will be provided by the district if a student doesn't have a mask. Also, if for some reason the mask falls off, gets stepped on, whatever, we'll give a replacement mask to students. Everyone will have a mask all day. Masks are also required in order to ride the bus, and they have to stay on throughout the bus ride. On the buses, students are going to be seated one to a seat. Students from the same household will be seated together. If, however, we get to the point where there are more kids, we may have to put 2 kids into a seat. We are hoping we do not. That's one of the reasons why we're going to be sending out a survey to parents to find out what your plans are for ridership. However, the kids will all be in masks on the bus. Parents are encouraged to provide transportation to help us reduce numbers on the buses. That came from the Department of Health, Department of Education, both. And again, we're in it together. It is one of the ways to make it safe. I know that most families want to have kids back in school, and if it's possible for people to transport, it will help. We are going to have mask breaks during the day, and students do not need to wear their masks while they're seated and they're eating. We're discussing what the rules will be for the mask breaks. What it looks like it will be is that when a class is in a quiet activity, for example, reading, taking a test, or writing, in other words, not speaking, and everyone is seated, they may have a mask break, and that would be a time. But if it's something where the teacher, the kids are speaking, they'll have the masks on. And we will also have hand sanitizer available in each classroom and in all common areas, and it's available to students if they want it as well. Ample opportunities for students to wash their hands, and it's going to be part of learning in the schools about the expectations for hand washing. At the playground, we've gotten portable hand washing stations that are on order so that kids can wash their hands before and after they're on the play structures. So we do have a remote instruction by parental choice option. Instruction will be provided by New Lebanon faculty, and the remote students will be on a class roster right along with their in-person peers. In other words, if you're a high school student, you will have the exact same schedule of courses that you would have had if you were in school, but it's going to be remote. Teachers will post video, direct instruction, along with related instructions on their Google Classroom. And all students will also engage in Wednesday remote instruction. Remote students are going to be responsible for daily engagement with Google Classroom. New York State requires that we take attendance, and attendance will be taken based on students engaging with the materials that are posted on Google Classroom. They have to complete all assignments. They have to participate in all state and local assessments. In other words, their expectations are the same as for the kids who are in-person instruction. And remotely instructed kids are going to receive a report card in the same manner as the kids in the hybrid program in person. Again, we're going to be sending out a survey after we're done with our final parent meeting, remote parent meeting like this one. Just want people to know what their options are before they let us know what they plan to do. And we'll be asking parents to let us know if they're planning on coming to in-person in the hybrid model or remote instruction. Some of the questions I've had about this is, can people change? Yes, you can. But if someone has been on remote and they're looking to come back into the school, we ask that you give us minimum a day, because we do have to reset a classroom to have the right number of desks and to make sure that we still have the 6 foot of social distancing, which may mean, moving some of the desks around in the classroom. We just want to be ready. So let us know if you're going to change whatever your initial selection is, and we'll accommodate you. Because our program for remote instruction is run by our teachers with our curriculum, you don't need to commit for a period of time. And we want people to do what they're comfortable with and what their child's comfortable with. So our hope is that we can be as flexible as we need to be for our families. When we went to the hybrid model at Walter B. Howard, my concern was Wednesdays. When students are in remote instruction, we will be providing childcare. And again, this will be on that same survey that we're sending around to parents. You're going to have to sign up ahead of time if you need the childcare. We can't do drop-ins. Supervision will be provided by our teaching assistants and our aides, and the students will be allowed some supervised computer time to work on their remote activities, because their teachers will be posting lessons for those days. Lunch is provided, bus is provided, and all the same contagion mitigation practices will be in place. Kids will be assigned to a cohort that they will be all day long. We're not going to be mixing the kids, and that's another reason why we need you to sign up. Additionally, part of our cooperation with the Department of Health is that we are a partner if they need to do contact tracing. And so we need to know exactly where the kids are and who they were with. So it will be very structured, and it will run on the same school schedule. Social distancing, we're using the 6-foot social distancing. All classrooms are arranged to support it. Hall passing will be monitored to support the social distancing. It looks a little differently at the elementary school than it does at the high school. They don't have the same kind of hall passing at the end of periods at the elementary school. There's rarely a need for kids to be passing except to go to their specials. And they'll only have one classroom of kids in the hallway at a time. They'll walk distanced. And again, social distancing will be on the bus with one student to a seat unless they're from the same household. And again, we encourage you to provide transportation to reduce the number of riders on our buses. 12-foot distancing is what will be enforced for aerobic activities and for choir and for band. I met today with the choir teacher at the high school, and they're working very hard to figure out what they can do with their program to keep kids safe. A lot of their curriculum will be non-singing curriculum that they will have on days in small groups. Things like marking up their music to know what they're supposed to do, discussing the background of the pieces that they're singing. And they're looking at ways to create a virtual performance out of small groups, because we know we can't get all the kids together and singing. We can't support the 12-foot distancing and do that. We're also looking at different masks for kids that will allow them to take a breath without basically having a mouthful of mask. And some of that has to do with the materials that they're made of. And they're also in the process of making, I don't know what to call them, it's like a sock for the bell of all the instruments to go around the instruments so that we're not pushing out a lot of droplets through the instruments. Our teachers are getting the information from national organizations for choir directors and for band directors to find the safest way possible. But it's not going to be what it has been in the past, but we will still have a music program and we will still have kids finding a way to create performances, but it's not going to be a big performance in the gymnasium with the community there. We just don't see that being realistic, at least for the winter concert coming up. But we want kids to stay connected to the program. We want them to love music, and we're working very hard to find ways to do this safely. This is going to be a work in progress. Sanitation in the buildings. Desks and seats will be sanitized between uses. Students in grades 4 through 12 will be instructed in it as part of health curriculum, and sanitizing wipes will be provided. It's just part of being appropriate socially now to clean areas that you work in. And that's what the kids will be doing. If kids need gloves, gloves are available in the classroom. If they would prefer to not handle the wipes, that's not an issue. There'll be gloves in every classroom for people who prefer to use them for whatever reason. Any shared equipment will be sanitized between uses. Some of that is things that are more likely to be used by the staff, like copying machines. But computer keyboards are going to have to be sanitized if the kids are not using one that's just dedicated to them. Also, high-touch areas, sanitized every 2 hours. And hand sanitizers available again in every classroom and in all common areas. Students' hands will be sanitized upon entering the building. And the high-touch areas on the buses are sanitized between runs, and then the whole bus is cleaned between the AM and the PM runs. Monitoring. We're required to have temperatures taken of all students and all people entering the building. We've purchased scanners that will students and staff will walk through upon entering the building. And if someone tests high, we will retake the temperature with a thermometer to check for accuracy. And if anyone has a temperature, they're immediately put into isolation as required by the Department of Health, and parents are contacted. At the elementary school, if you're dropping off your child, they're asking that you stay to make sure your child has gone through the temperature scan. We'd hate to have you just turn around if someone has a fever that day. All staff and visitors complete a COVID questionnaire prior to reporting to work or visiting in the building. And the next one is really pretty big. It's such a big difference for parents with sending kids to school. If students are displaying any symptoms consistent with COVID, and there are a lot of symptoms consistent with COVID, they have to be isolated until they can be brought home. And this is a Department of Health rule. Students who are sent home can only return when they're cleared by a physician. So if your child comes to school with symptoms that are consistent with COVID, but maybe an allergy, you still would have to have your child cleared. So I'd suggest if your children have allergies, that they take their medication at home so they don't come to school with allergy symptoms, because many of those are consistent with COVID. All the monitoring protocols we do have following the Department of Health recommendations and requirements. So if the Department of Health changes its recommendations and requirements, we will change our practices. We're really going to limit who comes in. Only visitors who have business with the district that requires entry will be coming into the building. And those visitors go through the same questionnaire and temperature screening. So this means if you're dropping something off for your children, we'll ask you to leave it outside and we'll go and retrieve it and bring it in. This means parents as well. Deliveries aren't going to come in the building. We'll be bringing most of them in with our staff. They'll be left outside. So it will be a real difference in practices, and we're all adjusting. We're trying to picture what this looks like the same way that you are. This is a lot of words on a slide, and I know it breaks every rule for how you're supposed to present slides to have this many words on it, but people have asked questions about the contact tracing, how it happens, when it happens. I also have a lot of detail in our plan that is direct from the Department of Health related to the contact tracing. Also related to how long someone has to be out of school based on exposure. I really would direct you to look at that document and look at the testing and tracing portion. It's one of the last items on the document, and it'll give you an idea of what the Department of Health is expecting from us at this point in time. I'm going to give you a little time to read the slide. I know it's a long one. And again, this is a synopsis that I wrote from the information that they provided us. And there's much more detailed information in the written district plan. I'd really direct you to check that out if this is an area of big concern for you. Digital support for instruction. We're going to need this. All teachers are going to use Google Classroom to post classroom activities and assignments. It will include recorded direct instruction to assist absent students, high school students on remote days, and students on remote instruction by preference. To help folks who do not have good broadband at home, we're boosting our Wi-Fi signal out into the parking lots. We also currently have a survey going online to try to get more information about areas in the county that do not have, and this is for Columbia County, that do not have good Wi-Fi. Superintendents had a meeting recently with the Columbia County supervisors, and they're trying to get this information. Oddly, you would think that the providers have it, but they really do not like to let it be known where they have gaps out of concerns with competition from other providers. So the county is trying to find where there are gaps to see if they can fill this in. So if you do not have good service and you fill out that survey, I'd really appreciate it. I'll be getting the information back to the county very soon. So we will be giving all of our deployable devices to students to support remote instruction day. We have had additional Chromebooks on order. They're currently on back order. Soon, every student will have a Chromebook. During this school year, we will be one-to-one with Chromebooks. But right now, there seems to be a lot of demand and not as much supply for these. But that is our goal, and we will be providing whatever devices we have deployable to people who need them. And we're hoping it'll stretch far to meet the needs. So now I'm going to turn to Jason McCord, and who's going to give me some chat questions. Maybe just before I do that, let's see, Matt, is there anything that you would like to go back to that you think you didn't give enough detail on, or maybe you would like to give a nuance to for the high school?
No, I think you did a nice job. I just wanted to let families know that specific correspondence pertaining to student schedules and the plans in each building is forthcoming. We're hoping, at least in my building, to have schedules ready by the end of the week with the hope that we can reach out to families with that more specific correspondence next week. And certainly anyone who wants to give me a call or shoot me an email with questions or concerns, I'm more than willing to speak with you and hopefully problem solve.
And I know the elementary school is putting together its mailings now as well. So Jason, what do we got?
We have a few virtual questions. Will the virtual students be working together remotely during the school year?
The question is, will the kids on remote instruction be working together during the school year? I'm not sure I understand the question. Did you have any more detail on that?
There's a second part that says, will there be teachers on Zoom for the virtual option, or will it only be websites and worksheets?
It will not only be websites and worksheets, but it's not going to be synchronous. In other words, they're not going to be Google Meets every day. Teachers may have Google Meets during the week, but they may also be posting tapes of themselves providing instruction. Or it may be recordings of things that they find from, say, Khan Academy or other resources that provide instruction. So there will be direct instruction. There will be some time with synchronous meets, and there will be materials posted to be completed. I'm hoping that answers the question. If you have follow-up, put it on here or send it to me in an email. What else?
62 to 100% remote. Leslie said it was going to be conducted by new resident faculty along with the child's peers, but the website seems to say otherwise. Can you clarify what the 100% remote day would look like? Will the remote students simply have a video feed into the class?
We cannot stream out of our classrooms. We don't have the bandwidth to be streaming out of all of our classrooms. So it's not going to be a stream from the classroom. It may, however, be some clips that are recorded during a classroom that are posted on the teacher's Google Classroom. What else were parts of that, Jason, that I missed?
Can you clarify what the 100% remote day will look like?
Students will be expected to access all of their courses in a remote day because we must take attendance, and the attendance will be taken based on students engaging with their classroom on a daily basis. What it will look like may depend on your household. Because it is not synchronous instruction, the student does not necessarily have to follow the schedule that's going on in the classroom, but they do have to access the material from each class, and in the elementary school, from each of the content areas that the teachers teach. There may be a phonics lesson, and then there may be a reading lesson, a writing, one day social studies, one day science. Those may not be every day, depending on the age of the student. And there will be specials as well. The specials will come up in the same schedule that they would in the high school. They would appear once a week for a schedule that meets once, a special that meets once a week. If it's PE and it meets more frequently, those lessons would be up more frequently. I hope that answers your question. What else?
What are the guidelines if a student or teacher becomes COVID positive? How long is the school closed down?
This goes back to looking at how the tracing is conducted by the Department of Health. We would be notified if someone tests positive, and we would be assisting Department of Health in the contact tracing, depending on the nature of the contact, which is determined by how close they were and how long they were together. They will say who needs to not be in school. The decision to close down a school has not been defined by the Department of Health. But of course, we get to a certain place where we've hit critical mass if we have a number of teachers and I can no longer have an in-person school, we'll go to remote. Thankfully, the teachers are already setting up what these remote instruction would be by preparing for the kids who are remote by choice. So we would go directly into that. And again, this would be a decision made, I believe, in conjunction with the Department of Health. They have not given us a direct piece of information on if this venue close. What they did say is they will let us know who needs to be out of the school. And it would depend on where the contact was who is in contact and how many people are required to be quarantined. I hope that answers your question. I know people think that it's a lot more cut and dry on some of these things, but I do have to work with the health department because they are the ones who are in charge of quarantine decisions and the contact tracing.
That's all the questions I have. You can remind folks to send them. If anyone's getting clarification for it, see if they have any others.
Yeah, if there's any other questions, please put them up, or if there's a follow-up to any of these chats that I didn't answer sufficiently, please give me a chance to respond to the best of my ability and to the best of the information we have currently. We have another meeting coming up on Thursday, and may add information based on whatever anybody puts into the emails that they've been sending me, and I really appreciate people sending me the emails. It's helping us very much to know what information we need to get out, to know where things aren't clear to folks, and to see where people have concerns that we may be able to meet and we may not be able to meet. And I think that's why the remote option is there for you. And that's what we have right now. So I'm going to say good evening, and I really want to thank people for coming in. Matt, anything you want to say in the end?
No, other than, you know, we're trying our best to provide the most safe environment for our kids that we can. We care about them deeply, and a partnership with school and home has always been important, but it's even more important now. Hearing from you means a lot, and we appreciate all those who are taking the time to try to find out what's going on with our proposed plans. And a lot of your responses have really pushed us in different directions. We're trying to be as responsive as we can. So we really appreciate all your help and hope that that continues throughout the school year.
And thank you again, everyone. Have a good evening. Something occurs to you, please send in an email. We really appreciate it. And we miss everybody. We miss our kids. And we wish it was just back the way it was. You all have a good night. Thank you.